Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this very important discussion with the SBA and the Public-Private Strategies Institute on changes to the Paycheck Protection Program. I'm going to invite my colleague Leroy to read a brief slide about translation services.
Muy buenas tardes a todos de parte de la empresa de Public-Private Strategies Instituto, además de la Administración de Pequeñas Empresas de los Estados Unidos. Queremos que toda nuestra audiencia sepa que hoy este seminario se está traduciendo al español y los servicios de traducción, si desea escucharlos, puede marcar al número que está en la pantalla. Si quiere marcar al número que está en la pantalla, el 712-770-5505, ahí podrán otorgarle traducción en español. De nuevo, el número en la pantalla, 712-770-5505 para traducción en español. Muchas gracias a toda la audiencia de hoy por acompañarnos.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Leroy. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Rhett Buttle. I'm the founder of Public-Private Strategies and the Public-Private Strategies Institute. We are so thrilled to be able to partner with the U.S. Small Business Administration this week to make sure that we're getting the word out about some very important changes that President Biden and Vice President Harris announced to really make sure that America's smallest businesses and business owners of color have a fair chance at getting access to the Paycheck Protection Program, as well as some other important changes that we'll highlight today. As everyone knows on this call, small business owners are the backbones of our community. They're the hearts of everything that we think about in this country. They create 2 out of every 3 new jobs. And so it's so important that we all work together to make sure that we build back better. I want to, before I turn it over to some special guests that we have on the line today, I want to thank our partners who've partnered with us to make today possible. So first, a huge thanks to the U.S. Small Business Administration team for moving quick to partnering with us to make this happen. I also want to thank the White House team who's joined several of these webinars throughout the day. I want to thank the U.S. Hispanic Chamber for also joining us in this partnership. With that, it's my pleasure to turn the call over to a special guest from the White House Office of Public Engagement. With that, I'll turn the line over to Ernie Apreza. Ernie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rhett, for that introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to apologize for not appearing on camera. Tech, we're trying to master it, and the differences in devices that we all have, but I so appreciate you making the time. My name is Ernie Apreza, and I'm Senior Advisor with the White House Office of Public Engagement. Specifically, I lead on our outreach and engagement with the immigration stakeholder community, and then separately the Latino community as well. As Rhett said, this pandemic has hit small businesses particularly hard, and as we know, on a variety of different issues, there has been disproportionate impact on people of color and minority-owned small businesses. And what I would like to convey is that you have the full commitment of the White House and U.S. Small Business Administration to address these inequities. President Biden has made it a priority to equitably support our small businesses with crucial relief funds, particularly in historically underserved communities. Before I toss it over, I want to talk about something that is an important priority for us in the near future, which is the president's historic $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which is currently with the Senate and would be a bold step in positioning us towards economic recovery. And it is so important. If this doesn't pass, or frankly, what is at stake here is $15 billion in grants to the hardest hit small businesses, $10 billion of investment in successful state, local, and tribal small business financing programs, $25 billion in grants for small restaurants that have lost substantial revenue, and finally an additional $7.25 billion in funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. There is so much at stake, those components included, and it is so incredibly important for Congress to act quickly. So with that, appreciate everyone's support and welcome everybody to what is going to be a very informative session. I am now going to hand it over to my friend Leroy Cavazos Reina with the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ernie, for your leadership at the White House Office of Public Engagement. It's definitely an honor and a privilege for the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to stand in solidarity today with Public-Private Strategies Institute, with the United States Small Business Administration, and with the Biden-Harris White House to get necessary information and technical assistance out to our small business community, with an emphasis on the Hispanic business community, of which the USHCC represents 4.7 million businesses, as we lead our road to recovery and revitalize American main streets back to what they were before COVID-19 and this global pandemic. We would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us today to receive this important information, and invite you to visit our website at www.ushcc.com in order to get resources and technical assistance. The United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is proud to bring this webinar series to its members and the community at large in order so that you all can get on to your road to recovery. Thank you very much. And at this time, it is my honor and privilege to present to you from the United States Small Business Administration, Cynthia Rotuno, Associate Administrator. Cynthia, welcome.
Leroy, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for being here. And to Ernie and Rhett, thank you so much for helping be a host of this. And thank you for all your colleagues at PPSI. What a wonderful team in helping us organize this webinar. And more importantly, thanks to everybody here today on the webinar from our community. Welcome to the U.S. Small Business Administration. More importantly, we want to make sure that we thank our Latino small business owners, community organizations, and of course, all our allies and resource partners who are on the front lines of this epidemic and this economic fight. You know, I can't believe it's just 46 days ago that I officially joined SBA to help lead the team on this effort to engage the public in our critical work. And I chose public service because it's a dire situation. Our small business communities, especially our Latino small businesses, are hit hard. You know, Latino-owned businesses have grown over 34% in the last 10 years, making us the fastest growing segment of small businesses in the United States. However, we also lost about 32% of our Latino small businesses that have closed because of the pandemic. And actually that's compared to 17% for white-owned small businesses. So the situation is dire. I was really fortunate to grow up in a small business with a strong familia in South Texas, in a tortilla factory where my grandmother originated it and formed this tortilla factory. We packed pan dulce, we went on the sales routes, we worked with our cousins and our family, we earned our salary to go to college and tuition, our tuition and our college, and being the first to graduate from my family with a college degree. So I especially know the importance of small business and how it helps dreams come true. And right now, a lot of dreams are deferred. And that's why we're here today. And that's why you're especially important to be a partner in this effort. So with that, I want to kick it over to my wonderful colleague, our newest AA for the entrepreneurial development, Mr. Mark Madrid. Mark?
Gracias, Cynthia. And thank you, Leroy, Ernie, and Rhett, and teams. Familia, thank you for taking precious time on a Friday, no less. And happy Women's History Month to all the Latina small business owners joining us today. Hashtag Latina Power. I couldn't be more energized than I am today in serving under President Biden and Vice President Harris. As Ernie mentioned, we are encouraged about the American Rescue Plan and providing support to the hardest hit small businesses. I am honored to serve as Associate Administrator for the Office of Entrepreneurial Development. We are SBA's technical resource and assistance arm with national resource partners, including the Small Business Development Centers, the Women's Business Centers, and SCORE chapters. Our office, along with the other SBA offices, come together, and we have a shared value of serving you. I'm lucky to have tremendous SBA peer leaders like Cynthia, and thank you, Cynthia, for that story about, I've got to ask you more about the tortillas after this call. But I'm lucky to be with Cynthia and Patrick, aligning on closing access gaps. That's the bottom line that exists for Hispanic business owners across this country. I have roots, as some of you know, in a small farming community in the Texas Panhandle. As a proud great-grandson of immigrants, I watched and admired mi papa, my dad, in building his welding business, which he had for 40 years. Built, it was undercapitalized, under-resourced, under-networked, but built with ganas and resilience. And I know you can all relate to the ganas factor. For our family, the American dream was helping my dad run a successful business. As most of you know, my dad died from COVID-19. And during those last days, I reflected on what the path might have been if he would have had access to resources, networks, capital, to potentially franchise, to leave a succession plan. This is one of the reasons that I'm thrilled about the work that we're doing with Patrick, with Cynthia, with the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and thank you, Private Public Strategies Institute, for this opportunity, and Ernie. You'll be hearing from Patrick momentarily, and that is about recent improvements. That's the bottom line of PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, on track to reach more Latino and Latina mom and pops, sole proprietors, and young entrepreneurs. Unquestionably, you are here as the backbone of our economy because the data doesn't lie, and we're doing everything we can to remove barriers that have stopped numerous small businesses from applying for these loans. And if that is you or someone that you know, we look forward to serving this population that means so much to us as we do those who have accessed PPP already. Muchas gracias, familia. Great to be with you. And now I introduce my incredible colleague, Patrick Kelly, who will lead the discussion about the Paycheck Protection Program. Gracias.
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everybody. Thank you again for being on this webinar to learn more about PPP. As you gathered from Mark's remarks, my office is in charge of the Paycheck Protection Program. And I'm excited to get a chance to tell you more about what we're doing to level the playing field for the smallest of small businesses so they can get relief. My goal is to help small business communities and put them back on the path of opportunity, enhancing equity for every small business owner. Too many small business owners have been left behind or left out of the recovery, and the Biden-Harris administration is making it its top priority to course correct. So first, here's where we are right now in this phase of the Paycheck Protection Program. The share of funding going to small businesses with fewer than 10 employees is up nearly 60%. The share of funding going to small businesses in rural areas is up nearly 30%. And the share of funding distributed through community development financial institutions and minority deposit institutions is up more than 40%. This is good progress, but obviously we know the work doesn't stop there because too many small businesses are falling behind. And so last week, President Biden made significant changes to the PPP to ensure small businesses that need the help most have access to it. So here are an outline of the changes. We are now, President Biden announced, we are now allowing sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed individuals to receive more financial support by revising the PPP's funding formula for these categories of applicants. And we'll get into some of the details through the question and answer. We are eliminating an exclusionary restriction on PPP access for small business owners with prior non-fraud felony convictions, consistent with a bipartisan congressional proposal. We're eliminating PPP access restrictions on small business owners who have struggled to make student loan payments by eliminating student loan debt delinquency as a disqualifier to participating in the PPP. And finally, we're ensuring access for non-citizen small business owners who are lawful U.S. residents by clarifying that they may use individual taxpayer identification numbers, or ITIN, to apply for PPP. With that, I'll pause and hand it back over to Renee, and I think Mark and I will take some questions.
Thanks so much, Patrick. And Mark, really excited to hear from both of you, Patrick and Mark. We have a lot of questions going on. Want to put out there on the onset that we are not answering specific questions. We know that there's a ton of specific questions. We're going to answer general questions that are out there. We're kind of grouping questions that people are asking. So we apologize. There's so many. We're going to try to get through as many as possible. We're going to try to also group your question with others that may be similar. So just please bear in mind as we're answering this, that this may not be very specific to your issue, but we're going to try to do the best to get you the answer to your question as possible. Before we get started as well, if you are on the translation line, we're going to ask that you mute your phone. There's a lot of feedback that people are getting, and it's a little difficult to hear. So we're asking everyone on the translation line to please mute your phone. All right, so we are seeing a lot happening here. And I think our first question is probably the obvious. What if you already received first round funding, but it wasn't enough for your business? Are you eligible for funding in this round?
Yes. So one of the provisions that's currently in place and up until March 31st is what is called a second draw PPP loan. So if you received a first draw PPP loan in 2020, you can apply for a second draw PPP loan in 2021. There is one additional eligibility criteria for 2021 that was not in place for 2020. You need to demonstrate that you have a 25% or greater decline in revenue comparing your first quarter, comparing any quarter in 2020 to a similar quarter in 2019. So for example, Q2 2020 versus Q2 2019, your sales from 2019 to 2020 in those quarters are down 25% or greater. You can apply for a second draw.
That's good news to hear. I'm seeing a lot of people who are having some confusion about eligibility status. Some are independent contractors, and that means they're a S Corp, a C Corp, a LLC. So want to talk through what are the eligibility requirements for people to apply for a PPP?
Yeah, so ownership, organization structure, its tax implications, and how you apply for the funds for PPP or loans in general can get complicated. So I empathize with you. There are directions and calculators on how to calculate this that you can access at SBA.gov or Treasury or the U.S. Treasury websites, and it breaks out corporations and organizational structures and allows you to calculate your loan amount and to answer your questions.
That's great. And I know that there's some people who are worried about the timeline. Some people have heard with the new rules that it ends on March 9th and that they can't apply any further after March 9th. Can you dispel any myths about what that March 9th deadline is?
Yes, I can, and I'm glad you asked that, Renee. So one of the really amazing things that the Biden-Harris administration is doing is they are putting in President Biden's words, the mom and pop businesses, the smallest of the small businesses, ahead of the line. And one of the ways that President Biden wanted to demonstrate that was to give businesses with 20 or fewer small employees exclusive access to apply for second draw and first draw PPP loans over a 14-day period. So right now, the only businesses that can seek a PPP SBA loan authorization from a lending intermediary are those businesses that are 20 or fewer. However, on March 10th, the day after that 14-day exclusivity period ends, you can continue to apply just as any other size business, and there are plenty of funds remaining to get your funding ahead of the March 31st deadline.
Great, thank you for explaining that. There is a ton of questions about the rule regarding lawful residents. Are you able to discuss that? What is this rule about lawful residents?
Yeah, so in terms of lawful residents, what we're talking about, as I mentioned earlier in the remarks, lawful residents who have an ITIN number are now eligible to participate. Those folks who have a green card status are eligible to participate. If you are a lawful resident, you can access these funds, and we want to encourage you to do so.
Thank you. There's a lot happening out here where people are asking the questions about forgiveness. What is forgiveness? How can one apply for forgiveness? What are the terms for forgiveness? Are you able to talk a little bit more about the terms and how does one even know if they're eligible for forgiveness?
Yes. So first off, if you took a PPP first draw, you are eligible for forgiveness. It's simply a question of whether you receive full forgiveness or partial forgiveness, but you are all eligible for forgiveness if you took a first draw PPP loan. And to give you some confidence about how this is working, to date, the SBA and its lending intermediaries have processed a third of the 5.2 million units from the first phase of PPP loans. And of that third, 99.1% of forgiveness applications received full forgiveness. So we want to, Congress and this administration want to encourage you by letting you know that forgiveness is supposed to forgive. So that's the first thing I would say. Second, in terms of how to access forgiveness, you can return to the lender who originated your PPP loan, and they will be able to work with you, accept your forgiveness application, and submit it to the SBA. And again, for a third of the 5.2 million units that were originated, 99.1% of the time, full forgiveness is being validated by the SBA. I should also point out that the driver of your calculation of whether you will receive full forgiveness or partial forgiveness revolves around a ratio. 60% of the proceeds from your PPP loan need to go towards payroll, hence the name Payroll Protection Program, but 40% can go to other eligible uses, including utilities, rent, and non-payroll expenses. So your lending intermediate can help you with that. And I would also encourage small business owners who work with typically a CPA to file taxes to consult with your CPA on your forgiveness application. The CPAs and their membership with the AICPA have been instrumental in helping the forgiveness process across the nation. I'd also encourage you, if you use a third-party payroll provider like ADP or Gusto or Paychecks, and there are others, those payroll providers have also played a pivotal role in helping small business owners navigate forgiveness. And again, I want to emphasize this again, the goal of forgiveness is to forgive. And the numbers are demonstrating that. Of the third of the forgiveness applications that have been submitted, a third of the overall loans, 99.1% have received full forgiveness.
Yeah, I was like staggered when you just said that. I was like, wow, that's good. So that means people should definitely make sure that they apply for forgiveness, because the opportunity to be forgiven is very high. Great. There are a few questions about people who just recently started companies, and more specifically, starting a company, in 2020, does not have payroll in 2019. Are they able or eligible for a PPP loan?
So this is one of those questions that it depends, which is less satisfactory, but and why I say that is you may be eligible, but only if your business was started before February 15th, 2020. And then obviously there are other criteria for obtaining a PPP loan that I have spoken to earlier regarding the other questions. So for example, if you're seeking a first draw versus a second draw, there are distinctions.
Okay, great. Seeing quite a few questions about the extension of the PPP program, which ends March 31st. Are you able to talk about what that means for the program to end on March 31st, and if there are any extensions for it?
Yeah, so so first off, the program that's authorized by Congress and signed into law by the President of the United States typically has a program period. And in this case, that program comes to an end on March 31st. So what that means is after March 31st, unless Congress, together with the executive branch, signs an extension, there will not be access to this program beyond March 31st, 2021. That said, I know that the administration is aware of discussions happening on the Hill regarding the potential of extensions, but nothing is firm yet. So I would encourage you to, if you need a second draw or you need a first draw, to find a lending intermediary. As you see on the screen, there is a tool, sba.gov /lender match, which helps borrowers find lenders. And just as a side anecdote, the incoming nominee for the SBA administration, who we hope will be confirmed shortly, Isabel Guzman, in her prior experience in the Obama administration, helped launch that application at SBA. So I encourage you to find it and use it. There's also resource partners, and maybe if Mark is still with us, he can speak to the network of resource partners that can help navigate finding lending intermediaries.
Thank you, Patrick. Familia, yes, if I could ask a favor of you. So sometimes in virtual environments, we just see a slide. You know what I'm talking about? And we're multitasking. But I really want to show or highlight one URL that's on here a couple of times, and it is that sba.gov/local assistance. And I think it'd be beneficial if we have the chat option to just put this down as a hyperlink. I would hyperlink that. I would go to that website now, add it to your favorites, and what you're going to find here is our. We're, by the way, very energized to partner with the Office of Field Operations, as with Patrick in the Office of Capital Access. But you'll through the field operations sphere of SBA is our SBA district offices. So you'll find them there at this website. And you'll also find the resource partners that I was talking about earlier, which is our small business development centers, the SBDCs. the Women's Business Centers, or WBCs. You'll find SCORE chapters, which are mentors, and even the Veteran Business Outreach Centers. So if you go to sba.gov/local-assistance, please just jot that down as a favorite. Make sure that it's one of your top resources, and that's where you can go and literally find your nearest resource center. At the end of the day, I just want to say what I've seen from the community on the ground is that those who are successful are the ones that ask for help. And so we hope that we are pledging that you're going to find resources that can help you. Either if you are successful going for a second draw, or if you're thinking about your first draw, and then you're thinking about the what's next. I'll just recall that March 31st is the deadline. It's March 5th. I almost had to look at the calendar, but it's March 5th right now. There's money left. I hope you heard some encouragements on why, if you haven't applied for forgiveness, why it would be a good idea and that high percentage that Patrick mentioned. So I hope that you join me in going to this website so that you can see what resources are closest to you. Gracias.
Thanks, Patrick and Mark. There's a lot of people who are, it looks like, jotting it down, saying thank you for that. And then also asking, is this being recorded? It is being recorded, and we are going to make sure that you guys have this recording as well so that you're able to share. So thank you for that. Seeing some comments, and also had some questions during registration about lenders not helping or letting people apply. Is there anywhere people can go to report, and then finding other alternate places to make applications for PPP?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And so first off, I think Mark just highlighted, there are resource partners. So Mark, maybe just highlight it again, the website address, and re-emphasize the utility of going there for the folks.
Yes, so sba.gov/local-assistance. And
yes,
you could get there by sba.gov alone, but I just want to be more directional for you. Literally where you can go in and type your zip code and understand the different resource centers that are available. We also want to make sure that we are able to understand you and meet you where you are, because sometimes it's confusing, right? A district office versus a small business development center. Well, what is a women's business center? What's the difference? And then I see a VBOC, or Veterans Business Outreach Center, and then SCORE. So what I would ask is just take a few minutes today. If there's one thing that I ask of you, familia, because I know I've worked with many of you, is just go explore for 5 minutes and add this to your favorites. And I know that you'll get a lot from that. So thanks, Patrick, for the re-emphasis.
No, it really is important. And I would, before I get back to, dealing with lenders that don't want to help you, I really want to underscore Mark's point, because these third-party resources are at the state and local level, also are tapped into what's going on at the municipal and state level in terms of access to capital programs. And so while we're talking today about federal access, as Mark knows, and Mark participates and Mark leads, there's another whole ecosystem of access that, state to state, city to city, town to town, folks can access. So let's talk about lenders that aren't behaving. So a couple things. First off, what you need to know is that the PPP protection program is not supposed to be a typical credit underwriting process as a typical loan. So there aren't credit scores. Lenders may be using credit scores, quite frankly, when they have new customers that they don't have a prior bank relationship, but that is not a requirement. It is not something that should prohibit you from receiving a PPP loan. In addition, the process for underwriting or determining your loan amount for a PPP loan is simply a calculation. So last week, President Biden announced a huge improvement for independent contractors, self-employed individuals, and sole proprietors who may have received assistance from first draws in 2020, but in that case, they needed to calculate their loan amount from net income derived typically from their Schedule C 2019. That is obviously a lower amount because it's profit, and obviously the pandemic has impacted profits significantly, and many firms, needed more funds. So President Biden intervened last week to announce that we will calculate using gross income, which should lead to higher loan amounts. But if lenders are struggling with this, as Mark mentioned, there are 68 SBA district offices across all states, all 50 states and the territories. And there's an individual at each of these offices that can be located through SBA.gov at your local district office, called a lender relationship specialist. That lender relationship specialist has many roles, but one of them is to make sure that the lenders that they are responsible for are adhering to the rules. In addition, if you think that this is something beyond a lender being confused or maybe not aware of the rules that we're announcing here today, and you feel you're being mistreated in a way that's more serious, there is the Office of the Inspector General, and you can leverage that to make a complaint as well. And I would also say that it's important to remember that maybe this particular lender is, for whatever reason, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, having a bad day. There are over 5,000 entities across the country that are lending nationally to PPP borrowers. And so, you can go to the resource partners, but also there are plenty of entities that are advertising on Google. And sometimes the internet is scary when you're contemplating a debt, and I'm with you. But this particular product is uniform. So in order for that intermediary to originate it, it has a capped interest rate of 1%. It has the same loan terms in terms of forgiveness. It has the same maturity, 5 years. There are no personal guarantees, no collateral. So it's an unsecured note. So that is uniform. So whether you go to a minority deposit institution, a big boy bank, or a credit union, or a mom and pop bank, a community bank, you're going to get the same product offering. And so if this particular business doesn't want your business, then move on down the road.
And Patrick, I'd like to add that those are wonderful. You have options, Familia, is the bottom line. And I'd also like to throw out another acronym called CDFI. And so I don't want to steal anyone's thunder coming up, but there are options for you. And so the CDFI can also be a resource for you during this time. Thank you, Patrick, for just re-emphasizing that with this group. Mm-hmm. Oh, and a special shout out. There is a convergence like of this USHCC network and women's business centers. The El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is a women's business center. And so that is an example of somebody in El Paso who could have gone to this website that I mentioned earlier, typed in a zip code, and Cindy Ramos Davidson and her team would have popped up. And I can assure you that they're doing the work on the ground, connected to the ground, and successful in outreaching to those having questions about the Paycheck Protection Program. So I just come back to that sba.gov/local-assistance. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And I know people are really, really thankful for that information. But along with that, and learning the process, it looks like people are also trying to find out more about like what the credit history application process is. Some would like to know, they don't have what would be favorable credit, have credit issues, some have bankruptcy. What are the markers or judgment, if you will, to bar or prevent someone from getting a PPP loan?
Yeah, thanks, Renee. So first off, we're in an emergency. So there's a pandemic that has shuttered your business, so your sales are down. So by definition, your credit history is not good because the economy has not been doing well. And so this program is specifically designed because that is your reality. Typically in lending, you look back 12 months, and that's a barometer of how you'll do moving forward. Well, if we look back 12 months as a society, literally almost to the week, we have suffered so much, as Mark attested to both personally and professionally. And so it's not surprising that your credit is not looking as good as it might. So again, as I emphasized earlier, this is not a credit scored product. This is not, you need a 700 or 800 credit score. This is not a product where you pledge personal guarantees or pledge your home or have to put forward a ton of tax information and other materials to qualify for credit. This is an emergency paycheck protection loan that is intended to be forgiven. It was intended to be a grant, but we needed a national distribution channel, which the banking community, the CDFI community, all of the different lending intermediaries have stepped forward and helped facilitate. But in terms of the credit, you don't. There is one issue, though, that does preclude you from participating in this program. If you have had a past prior personal or business bankruptcy, then you are precluded from accessing funds in this particular program.
Thank you for that. We're going to actually do about 2 more questions. I'm seeing stuff about ex-offenders, and I know there's a new rule. Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up, Renee. So this is a really important step that I also want to say is going to become a priority across the board, and it's exciting that it has also become a bipartisan issue across the country. Consistent with those bipartisan approaches, historically, if you were an ex-offender, even if you've done your time, you made a mistake along the way, you atoned, you would be precluded from participating in programs like the PPP. But President Biden announced last week that provided that your offense took place longer than 5 years ago, you're not currently on parole or probation, or currently under indictment, you are eligible now to access these programs. And I will also say, on behalf of hopefully, again, our next SBA administrator, knock on wood, if she's confirmed by the Senate, Isabel Guzman, worked on these issues during the Obama administration, worked to expand issues in and around check the box issues. And I think you'll continue to see a very aggressive approach because, Mark keeps talking about the family. And in your family, if you make a mistake and you atone, your family takes you fully back. And so that's what we need to do.
Oh, that's great. There's some shout outs to Mark and Cynthia welcoming you. People are saying welcome familia to the SBA. They're really excited that you guys are there. Super happy to have you a part of the family there. So reading the chat there. Also seeing several questions about, can you actually apply for a loan at the SBA?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Renee. So no. No on PPP. However, there were EIDL advances and there are EIDL loans that you can apply for. And I don't know if, Mark, you want to talk a little bit about, how the resource partners can assist with that, and then I can kind of take the piece on PPP. You're on mute, Mark. Yep.
That is a wonderful question. This distinction of PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, from EIDL or EIDL, and within the EIDL framework, there's an EIDL grant and an EIDL loan. All that to say is, come back to that website, sba.gov/local-assistance, so that you can go to a field office, being a district office, or one of those small business development centers, women's business centers, even a SCORE chapter or a veteran business outreach center, so that you can know your options. There's different parameters with each one. For instance, a PPP funding can be forgiven, whereas an EIDL loan is a loan, right, with terms. The EIDL grant is something different. But here's what I will say, is once you get the particular dimensions of each, you'll understand clearly. Because I've been through this on the ground, and it's good to know the distinction. Because knowledge is power. If you know these products just conceptually, it'll give you more options. That's the bottom line. I've seen it time and time and again. I'll give you several examples from the ground. If somebody thought that they were applying for an EIDL loan, when in essence what they were doing is applying for PPP financing. So they were confused, and I could see why. I understand, Familia, that all this information can be very, very confusing. But once they understood that they could get a PPP financing that could be forgiven and an EIDL loan to help their working capital with very friendly terms, they thought, they had both. And guess what? They also got an EIDL grant. It's a lot right now if you're not familiar, but if you go to this website, you'll be able to go to those resource centers and figure out which option in isolation or in combination will help you in your situation.
Yeah, and for those of you who took a first draw in 2020, so you did receive access to PPP, one of the concerns throughout 2020 was whether or not your EIDL advance was going to count against your full forgiveness. And so thankfully, beginning in and around the holidays, perhaps a gift to us all, the EIDL advance is now does not take away from your full forgiveness of your PPP loan. And in addition, there was concern that if you received full forgiveness, that you would have an income tax event from that forgiveness. And thankfully, yet another gift during the holidays that was fixed at the federal level. It still may persist at the state level. So once again, to underscore Mark, financial services tends to be this daunting thing where there's a lot of acronyms and a lot of fancy talk that really is not that complicated, but if you're familiar with it, but you do so much more as a small business owner than fill out loan applications. So having these resources as your Robin to your Batman, that helps you be prepared and know how to navigate these things. And quite frankly, from speaking as a former banker, and I know Mark is too, we like that too, because you come in ready to play the game. You're prepared. It makes the job easier, and it's definitely better for everybody.
That's right. And another thing I'd like to add here is I've been familiar with the phrase "do business with each other and get business for each other" when we're doing Shop Latinx campaign. But also, you have an opportunity to learn from each other. What worked well, what did not. Share some scars, but also hopefully some success stories. I've heard them from Texas, for instance, when there was a multiple whammy happening. Not only COVID, not only how are we going to bring our employees back, how are we going to take our kids to school, but then it was the winter storm. And I've heard so many stories about how the resource partners, and I'm talking about the SBDC over at the University of Texas, San Antonio, how that center that was operating virtually answered the call and was able to help, a number of business owners. And I got to know him, and I called the center. "How are you doing?" is the first question I had. So anyhow, I hope that you are further inspired to take a look at what the resource partners are, because I can only imagine that a lot of information coming at you at one time can be daunting. But once you get these concepts down, I promise you that you're going to understand the difference, and it's going to potentially create more options for you.
And since Mark's repping his home state of Texas, Headco is a resource partner micro lender in Hartford, Connecticut, where I'm from. And so again, to prove the point, wherever you are, you can touch these resources and get access to this type of help that Mark's talking about.
Wow. I mean, you guys are just providing all the gems here. This is so amazing. And you guys already started the wrap up here of additional resources and opportunities for people to connect. Just want to have you guys just one more time reiterate the website that you can go to with the SBA before we wrap up the Q&A here.
So that is sba.gov/local-assistance. And so please, 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 if there's one takeaway, it's bookmark this situation here, add it to your favorites. If you need, some of you, I mean, sometimes I had to figure out how to use this button on the internet. Well, I'm sure your kids know how to do that as well, and refer to this frequently because also you'll see updates coming in that direction. Patrick, you might have some other additional information here. Thank you.
No, it's great. It's perfect.
Well, thank you guys. We really appreciate this. Next, we're going to turn to Marla, the Executive Director of Latino Economic Development Center.
Thank you so much, Renee. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think the reason why we are featured here on this webinar is to give you an example of some of the resources that have been discussed up until this point. So Latino Economic Development Center, also known as LEDC, is a community development financial institution, which is really just a long and kind of overdrawn out way to say community lender. So we do lending in the community, including PPP. So we are an SBA microloan provider, community advantage provider, and PPP provider. We're located in Washington, D.C., but serve Virginia and Maryland, specifically Arlington County, Montgomery County, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, as well as Mayagüez in Puerto Rico. And we are offering PPP in all of those markets. We also offer individualized coaching. We offer classroom training on business topics, and then loans for people looking to start and expand their businesses. Those loans are from $5,000 to $250,000. And I think one thing that I wanted to point out just during the discussion and the Q&A that was going on is that unlike a more formal financial institution or commercial financial institution that we're used to banking with, community development financial institutions are structured in a different way and funded in a different way so that we can actually take time to help people get through the application itself. So I know that's already one hurdle between, just understanding the fine print in the application, as well as just the whole process, both for applying and then receiving forgiveness on the loan. So we can help with all of that, and other CDFIs in your communities can do the same. We posted in the chat, there is an association of all of the community lenders in the United States called the Opportunity Finance Network, OFN. If you go to www.ofn.org, again, that's www.ofn.org, you can put in your state and find the community-based lenders in your community, and they will be able to help you either apply for PPP directly with them or point you in the right direction of a group that is offering that product. We have found this product to be very, very helpful to our clients getting through this COVID period. We're not out of the woods yet, but we are certainly doing all that we can to connect our clients, as was stated before, both to these federal programs, and every jurisdiction that we're working in has also offered local support, and we and others are working to connect small business owners to those programs as well. So I implore you to also understand what's out there for you beyond what the federal government is offering, because most communities also have city-based, county-based, state-based assistance that could supplement your PPP loan. I don't know if you wanted me to say anything else, Renee, regarding our services. Again, there are organizations like us. If you're not in DC, Maryland, Virginia, or Puerto Rico, there are organizations like us in every state, every general municipality, and so you should really take advantage of us. We're here to serve you. Really, really excited to serve you. And what I'll add is that there are also community lenders like LADC with bilingual staff that can help you, get through the process and understand the application from that point of view as well, from the linguistic point of view. So we are here with open arms, ready to help you. Anything we can do. If you do live in these communities that I mentioned, DC, Maryland, Virginia, and Puerto Rico, you can apply directly through our website at www.latinoeconomic.org. www.ledcmetro, all one word, .org/SBA PPP. Again, www.ledcmetro.org/SBA PPP.
Thank you so much, Marla.
Thank
we really
you.
appreciate it. And to all our speakers, to Patrick, to Mark, to Cynthia, Leroy, to Ernesto, to all of the amazing people here and our stakeholders who are part of today's program. We truly appreciate you. And all of you who are in attendance today, we greatly appreciate you. We know that is a difficult time, and we hope that some of the information provided today will help you to your road of recovery. We want to let you know again that we will be providing this recording to you, so please stay tuned and check your emails for that recording. Additionally, there are more of these webinars coming up. There's another one tonight at 6 p.m. It is in case you missed it for general, and it'll be live streamed. Now there are 2 more tomorrow, which is Saturday, March 6th. One will be for veteran small business, small employed, independent contractors, sole proprietors, and employers with less than 20 employees. That will be at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Another, in case you missed it, general small business session at 4 p.m., which is also going to be live streamed. And then Monday, March 8th, LGBTQ, restaurateurs, and youth entrepreneurs at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, anyone can attend any of these events. So we hope to see you, your friends, at any of these, and we hope that you are able to use some of the information and resources that are provided. Again, thank you so much for attending, and have a great weekend.